Okay, what is happening in the Bay Area real estate market right now? What will likely happen for the spring season? We're going to cover that along with many more questions that people typically have. What should you do as a buyer right now? How should you be thinking of this market if you were a homeowner thinking about making your next move? Are interest rates actually going lower? Why are prices rising? We're going to go over every single one of these stats together so that you can make an informed decision on whether now is the right time for yourself along with your current situation. So, in order to understand the present you and the future, you need to learn a little bit more of the past and what happened. So, first and foremost, a little bit about me. My name is Spencer Sue. I've been doing real estate for the last several years, and to give you some perspective, in the last 5 years, I've done over $262 million of transactions in the Bay Area, which is over 230 families helped. If you run these numbers, virtually every week we are helping people being successful with their moves. And because of this, we have a lot more experience and a lot more details that most people do not have. So I hope you find this valuable because of the aspect of just me being in the market every single day, every single week, seeing when things are hot, when things are down. I can clearly see it all. And my goal is to help you understand this so that you can shorten your time horizon, but also allow you to be successful much sooner. I'm personally also a Bay Area native. So because I'm a Bay Area native, uh, I know all the areas very well. And while there's a lot of flexibility of individuals moving from one side of the Bay to the other, I can be able to help navigate you very quickly so that you can focus on your sweet spots and you can win offers a lot faster. Last but not least, everything you're going to see is analytical and strategic by default. I don't just say, look, you got to buy, you got to sell. I say, look, if this is the right time for you, which for most people, if you're thinking about staying in an area for the 3 to 5 years, you should be considering to buy because at the end of the day, there's many variables that you can't control, which is price, interest rates, but you can control what you can buy up to. And my team and my resources will be able to help you with that move. Now, let's talk about the state of prices. Everybody asks me, where are prices? Like, how has that progressed through the last couple of years? You can see July 2022, or actually, sorry, May, April 2022 was the highest price generally for the entire Bay Area. And so during this time, it hit a peak, but you saw it quickly decline significantly. And we're talking about like a 25% plus decline within a matter of those months. And why did that happen? Back then, interest rates were rising very aggressively. And quite frankly, inflation was unknown of how much more and how bad it really was. However, you can see 2023 was quietly a good year. You may have not wanted to believe it, but take a look at the stock market. Take a look at clearly home prices. It did not fully recover from the declines of 2022, but it has been an incredible year, even though many people felt it wasn't a good year because we had the lowest amount of transactions in the last decade. But as you can see, we are midway through March. Home prices have been rising. I'm guessing and forecasting that we may be able to hit April, May figures given the velocity and given the amount of pent up demand that people have been having over the last 2 years. So you may be asking, why is this? Were interest rates better? The answer is kind of. They were kind of better than before, right? So take a look at these numbers at what I just shared with you, right? May 2022, that's when you saw rates continue to jump very quickly. It went from, on average for a 30-year fix, went from like fours to all of a sudden, if you look at the peak at that time, the sevens. So because it increased 3% within 7, 8 months, a lot of people were kind of going the wait and see approach. But if you look at 2023, through the end of 2023, it actually increased during that time, right? It didn't necessarily get any better. Now, at the end of 2023, it did decline. You can take a look at these numbers to kind of be relatively flat through the years. So that's what's been occurring when it comes to mortgage rates. So while rates are a little bit better than before, they're not drastically better. But why is this so important? People aren't necessarily just impacted on what rates are today. They are impacted by how they're likely to see what rates may be. Now, there was a lot of excitement that interest rates would be a lot better this year, But I am going to be telling you probably not. Like, it would be great to see interest rates get a lot better because it just means everybody has more purchasing power. But the fact is, I don't think it is as easy as that. You saw from the latest reports this week that the inflation numbers and the CPI numbers, the consumer price index numbers, are still pretty sticky. We're not like going back to the crazy issues that we dealt with before, but it's still not declining for the Fed to be really enticed to cut rates earlier. But because it's been relatively flat and because it's not necessarily declining, at least people understand, look, it is what it is. We've waited, as you can see, like, think about this. You may have waited for a year and a half if you're hoping for rates to be lower when they were at this levels back in October 2022. And a year and a half gone by, what did you see happen? Home prices have increased. You paid another 1 year and a half of rent, right? You lived in a place that just wasn't that you weren't comfortable with, right? Like, all of these things were things that have impacted people's mindsets, and they say, look, the rates aren't necessarily getting better. Home prices have been rising. We might as well just buy a place instead of renting, and that's why you see what you see in terms of the activity. But what if the interest rate is relatively similar as before? Give me one moment here. Yes. So given that the interest rates, as you can see, even though the interest rates have been relatively flat, the big thing that had occurred is hello stock market, right? Like, a lot of people did not realize that, yes, while 2023 wasn't necessarily the best year for tech, for company wise, it was a pretty darn good year. Take a look at this 2023 numbers, right? The decline happened from basically the 2022, and you hit it like a bottom at the end of 2022. And when things started to reverse, they reversed very quickly. Like, take a look at this huge increase in 2023. And right now, 2024, it continues to be no different. But you may be asking, like, did things actually get a whole lot better? Kind of, but there's a lot more excitement. And when excitement occurs, there's a lot more confidence. And say hello and say thank you to AI, artificial intelligence, led by NVIDIA. You tell me, if you or any of your friends, and NVIDIA has about 30,000 employees, most of them are in the Bay Area. But if you are an employee at NVIDIA and you've been there for the last couple of years, how can you tell me you are not incredibly wealthy? And how can you tell me you're not doing very, very well? And this is obviously one of the leading examples, but there are many like this. You look at Meta. Meta has done incredibly well after their big decline in the 2022 time too. So there's a lot of companies that have continued to excel and do well, and Nvidia is the leader of it because then it's bringing up this whole industry up. Like, you see a lot more money being invested in these AI startups and these companies in San Francisco. Question, how long will it last? I don't know, but the reality is it doesn't matter. The fact that it has hit these numbers, people can elect to sell stock. They can elect to cash out. They have clearly way, 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 way more money than before, and they are using it to then help with the down payment. Even though the rates are higher, they can lower the loan amount. So it's not uncommon right now where you see a lot of people putting 40, 50, 60% down. It doesn't mean you need to, but just be mindful. This is exactly why home prices have been rising. This is exactly why there is money out there. The confidence level is back. The rates aren't getting a lot better, but at least the stock market has done well. So people have been using money to divest into an asset that is something that they have been wanting for some time. And clearly, like, if your stock went up 2,000% during 5 years, then yeah, how can you say you cannot afford anything? You are the ones buying Los Altos, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Sunnyvale. Like, these are the people buying it. The rest of the areas, quite frankly, like Milpitas, San Jose, they're actually not even generally NVIDIA clients. They are actually just like Apple employees, Google employees, Meta employees. Like, those tend to be the others. The ones that are doing really well, because you can see, like, if you had $100,000 in NVIDIA stock, you now had $1 million, and a whole lot more people had a whole lot more than $100,000 in RSUs and in stocks. So this is a big part of the reason why things are what they are. Now, what can you expect in the near future? This is the forecast for the entire country in terms of what people have predicted back in November 2023, what it was likely to be 2024 wise, and what is revised now. You don't need to believe any of these specific individual numbers, but you can already get general themes, right? The general themes is across all indexes, everybody is expecting a higher increase than what the feeling was back in November. And it made sense. Like compare the stock market as an index now versus November, I think it went up like 15 to 20% then. So why would it not just go up a measly 5% when the general stock market is up 15% during this time? Food for thought, things to just be mindful of. None of these are my forecasts, by the way. These are all very, very large companies and very large orgs that are saying these things themselves. Now, the question that I also get is inventory really that low? Why did 2023, why was that some of the lowest inventory that we have had for the last decade? Think about this as a seller, or think about this as if you were a homeowner. Let's say your rate was at 3 or 4%, and let's say you really needed to find a place to make a move. But the value of a home, because you psychologically felt in 2022 you missed the boat, your home was down 15, 20%. Would you still want to sell that home? That's part of the reason back then that people were like, look, I'm going to try to stay in this a little bit longer. The market isn't as good as I would have hoped. It wasn't the 2022 numbers, which I have been exposed to because I remember my neighbor a year ago sold for X amount more than my home is worth today. Well, let's just wait and see. But as time has went on and people have seen the value of the home go up, then they have been thinking a lot harder. They're like, look, the rate isn't getting a whole lot better. We now went through another year and a half, and we need more space still. Like just because rates are higher, prices are different, doesn't mean that all of a sudden that your initial need of space has changed. Most likely you need it more. Maybe your child is older. Maybe you're now married. Maybe your in-laws visit a lot, right? There's all these reasons. Maybe schools matter. Like these happen either way. And so because of that, then you have a lot more people come back into the market. And they come back into the market as in they're selling their homes. So take a look at this, right? Take a look at January, February of this year. You can see January is still going to be lower than 2022, 2021. Make no mistake. But it is a good amount higher than 2023. Take a look at the February numbers. Same kind of math. So the thing that you need to just be mindful of is that we will have more homes to purchase this year than last year, because last year was a very low time in the last decade. We will not have as much homes to sell versus 2021 and 2022. So do not let that interfere with you. That being said, this is single family Santa Clara County. Every county is the same, condos, houses, all the same story, but the ratios are all equivalent. It's not like there were no homes that came on during that time. There's still a lot of homes. The bigger thing is you saw how home prices have reacted. Make sure that you are looking at homes that have sold under your budget in the last few months in those areas to see, are you looking the right places to begin with? That is the number one problem that most home buyers have today. They say, look, I'm finally back in the market. I'm confident. I think the world is ending and I'm going to take advantage of it. And then they realize the world is not ending. There's tons of people ready to buy a place, and the prices of homes have gone up more than they may have thought. And so they get into this trap thinking that we're in this low inventory environment. It's lower, but it's not even lower than last year. But clearly there was still 646 transactions, 827 transactions, 978 transactions in a month in a county alone for just single family. So the fact is you also have to just be realistic of where are your suitable options and understanding like what can you actually comfortably buy, leverage the resources I have of doing construction, like doing renovations afterwards, leveraging my lending partners to help you get the best options, right? Like these are things that you can do, the things that you can control, focus in the right areas, and you will be fine, right? As I mentioned before, still, even last year, we helped over 50 people with their moves, which means every week we get somebody in contract. So there is a lot of people that are moving along, they're doing well, they're just doing fine because they had realistic expectations. That's the key. Regardless of what your budget is, whether it's $1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, it's the same story, right? Just because you have a lot more liquidity and a lot more money doesn't mean you can all of a sudden think no one else has any money and your kind of dream of a place all of a sudden is there. You still got to make sure that the two align together, and that's the biggest thing and the hardest thing for most people to understand. And that is the thing that separates the winners and those that are not successful. So we're gonna break it down too specifically. What should you do if you're a seller, right? I mean, the fact is this: we should hit all-time records this spring. So I am going through a lot of listings right now. We want to put the home on the market. We're going to sell very well. We're going to break records in an area. That's the reality of what it seems to be, at least for the next few months. Summer, we'll see what happens. But for now, given the momentum, given just step by any open house, you will see a lot of people because there's a lot of buyers out there. Nobody's out there just looking around for no reason. The people typically are out there trying to buy a place. So the question you should have to ask for yourself is, how long is your time horizon, right? Like, do you plan to still be in the area for a long time? Or do you want to cash out and move on to something else? Maybe you want to downsize. Maybe you want to move to another area. Maybe it's from a tax reason, right? Like, these are all reasons that people are making moves and selling places. And the question I ask for you is, like, what more can you ask for? Do you want NVIDIA to hit 3 trillion? You want them to hit 4 trillion, right? Like, how much more do you want this to push? And maybe you can keep going for a while because, quite frankly, on the revenue side of things, they're forecasting they just still got a long runway. So it may still go on for some time, but why tempt that, right? You saw how quickly things didn't work out in 2022, but I don't know the future either, right? And so the idea, though, it's a very good time. You're able to hit the previous highs. The rates are still in the sixes, but there's clearly a lot of buyers because of all these people that have been waiting to buy a house. So why don't you just take advantage of these opportunities and just move on? Like, that's the suggestion I have for a lot of people. But it's your choice. If you really want to gamble and try to bet that'll keep going more in the future, it may or may not. I don't know. Nobody really knows. But what you can say is, how can you argue that this is not a good time if you are a seller? Now that goes for the converse side, on the buyer side. I'm going to admit, it sucks as a buyer right now, right? Just when you thought you had a lot of money again because the stock market went up, because you did not get impacted from layoffs, because you are at these specific companies, right? Like, I get it. I sympathize with that. At the same time, just remember, as a buyer, there is a lot of people that are always coming to the Bay. There's a lot of people that want to settle down. And the reality is this: if you do not buy now, what do you think happens a year later? Those people are still accumulating money. They just delayed their goals, but they're still accumulating more and more money. So the pot gets bigger every year, right? Like, this year versus 2 years ago, do you yourself have more or less money? The question is, do you have more or less money than everyone else, right? And that's the thing that's hard for people to get and understand. So my recommendation for everybody is, like, look, it's also about your time horizon. If you're planning to be here for 3 to 5 years, you seriously got to look into buying a place, and you got to buy a place as soon as possible. Because let's say even if things go up and down, or they go down first and they go up. Let's say the market has been flat for 5 years, right? Is it better to have owned the place than to have just rented the place for 5 years? The answer is most likely. So the idea is that it's like, it's understand, like, your time horizon. I sympathize that it's not easy. But then if you're aligned with someone like myself, we will get you a place much faster. You're going to win offers much quicker. You're going to have a great experience much sooner than everyone else. And as long as you have the time horizon to be in the area for 3 to 5 years, you should actively be looking. So what is the advice if you're still tuning in? Be patient but persistent. You got to look every week, but don't look every day. You don't need to look every day. That's overkill, right? That's not healthy either. Just look Thursday, Friday, right? That's enough for the week. Right? Look, Thursday, Friday, that's enough for the week. And then be ready to go, right? Be ready to go see, engage with me. Say, hey, Spencer, what do you think about this home? I will tell you very quickly, like, what it's worth and why, by looking at what other homes have sold for recently. And then we will make a competitive bid. We will also go take a look at these homes privately, right? Control what you can control. You cannot control rates going up and down. You cannot control home prices. You can control how much are you comfortable in spending. And that will equate to a dollar amount. And then let's look in those areas that transact. I would also say don't really bank too much right now on rates going lower. There is very little signs at this moment. Maybe it can go down in 6 months, but in the next couple of months, there's no real signs of that happening. Just because right now the prints that keep happening from the consumer price index seem to be still sticky. So don't expect rates to go lower. That's why you saw previously that chart. We're not like declining. It's been a decline and then actually an increase. Now, I don't think we're going to increase drastically either, but it's been that kind of been leveled off. A lot of people have done incredibly well in stocks, right? Like people that have been in NVIDIA, people that have just invested in the S&P, right? Like, why don't you think about some ways to just divest some of that into your home? Like, how much more do you think the stock market can go up? Like, does it make sense to divest and have a more balanced portfolio? Maybe you have no exposure to real estate. Maybe you have too much exposure. Like, these are things to consider and then factor in. Another important thing is expand to other areas that you may have not considered before, right? The Bay Area is a big place. There are a lot of great areas. Like, take an example. We're in San Jose, right? San Jose is a huge city. There are a lot of areas that are very good. There's a lot of areas that are very affordable. Like, just be open to it. Don't let your friends that don't know anything about these areas say, oh, you should avoid this and that. Talk to me. We'll have a very open conversation and just go check it out. You may be pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of people that are pleasantly surprised, right? Because a lot of people may not have ventured to these areas. Some people may not have ventured to the East Bay. Like, I caught up with a client that lived in San Francisco for a long time. They're super happy that they live in the East Bay now. There's so much to do there. They never traveled to that place in their entire time here. But because of the options of types of homes, remember, different types of products are in different areas, then that was your opportunity and it made sense to do so. And then last but not least, modify and be open to changing parameters. Look, everybody would love a single family. Everyone would love an open kitchen. Everyone would love fully remodeled, but not everyone has that budget, right? So be honest with yourself. Keep in mind, this move may not be your forever move. If that's not your forever move, it's okay. Live in it for a couple of years. Live in it 3 to 5 years. Buy something that works today. Condo or townhome, right? Something that could be doable. Maybe a smaller single family. Maybe a single family a little bit further out, right? These are additional things that you can control. So instead of trying to just force something in that doesn't work with your budget, understand what works and then adapt and adjust accordingly, and you will be successful and you will be glad that you did it. And yeah, one of the things I bring up that I tell everybody, right? At the end of the day, when you're looking to buy or sell, you always want to think about like, why did you want to do this to begin with? Especially when it comes to buying, it's not an easy process, as in it's not simple. If it was, I would not have a job. There would be no agents. You just simply go up with your blank check and then you would write an offer and then you'll get your offer accepted. It's not that, it's never that market, to be fair. You're never going to be the only buyer buying a house, right? And so because of that, it will be competitive. You may feel emotional. You may feel, why is the world against me? I just got my bonus. I just got my paycheck. I just got my promotion, but everyone is still on fire, right? Like, don't feel that way. Just feel like, look, at the end of the day, you're running your own race. Figure out what works. That can be your objective today, and keep saving for the next one. Like, you're not going to be broke. You're going to be just investing into this property and getting out from renting to owning, or a small home to a bigger home. That's the key, and focus on your long-term goals. So if you are serious about wanting to buy or sell, let's discuss a game plan together. I go over this on my YouTube channel every week in terms of places to live, new construction, market updates. Give me a call or text, 408-547-4590. Call me, text me, email me. Let's go over a game plan. Let's actively look for a place. You got plenty of options. Trust me.